Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're looking for a shortcut to being well-informed or, just hungry for the surprising insights hidden in dense source material, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're embarking on a really thematic deep dive. It's centered on one fundamental question. What is the nature of true faith when you're faced with an impossible situation? We are exploring a stack of ancient sources you shared with us, excerpts from Isaiah, Psalms, the Gospel of Luke, and several spiritual reflections that lay out this century-spanning narrative of divine commitment. Our mission is to distill the powerful contrast between two pivotal moments in history. First, we have a powerful figure who is offered absolute proof of sign and he flatly refuses it. And second, we have a humble, ordinary individual who's offered an impossible promise, the ultimate uncertainty, and she says yes. We want to understand what that difference teaches us about trust.
It's a remarkable set of sources. And as you said, they really bookend history with this one single thread, the concept of grace and revelation. If we zoom out for a second, the whole arc is summed up beautifully in Psalm 98, which speaks of God revealing his justice in the sight of the nations. We're basically tracing how that promise moves from a political disaster into this moment of pure personal faith.
Okay.
The aha moment here is realizing that the promise moves forward not through the powerful, the ones who demand certainty, but through the humble who embrace uncertainty.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start where the drama begins, in the courts of the powerful. We are in the time of King Ahaz. He's the reigning head of the House of David, and he's facing a massive political and military crisis.
A huge crisis, yeah.
And the source material from Isaiah 7, it just drops us right into that tension. The Lord speaks directly to Ahaz and offers him something, unprecedented. The instruction sounds almost too good to be true. Ask for a sign from the Lord, your God. Let it be deep as the netherworld or high as the sky.
Just think about the magnitude of that invitation.
It's incredible.
It really is. That isn't a small request for confirmation. That is a blank check for proof, tailored exactly to what Ahaz needs right then. The Lord is essentially saying, demand anything from the deepest ocean trenches to the highest reaches of the cosmos. I will give you whatever you need to solidify your trust.
An open door to absolute certainty. And what does Ahaz do? He slams the door. His response is so terse. I will not ask. I will not tempt the Lord.
And this is the first critical twist, right? It raises a fascinating historical question. Was this genuine piety? Or was it an excuse?
Right.
Ahaz was under extreme political pressure. I mean, he needed assurance more than anyone. But by refusing the sign, he keeps his political options open.
So he can still make his own alliances.
Exactly. He reserves the right to make decisions based on his own human power, completely independent of any divine intervention. His supposed holiness is actually a strategic refusal to commit.
And Isaiah the prophet, he is having none of it. His critique is blistering and it's personal. He addresses the entire failing monarchy, the House of David. He says, "Listen, O House of David, is it not enough for you to weary men? Must you also weary my God?"
That phrase, weary my God, is absolutely loaded. It suggests Ahaz's refusal isn't an act of trust. It's an act of profound, just exhausting stubbornness.
Wow.
He was making everyone his subjects, his advisors, and now even the divine tired with his lack of commitment. He was demanding control instead of accepting assurance.
That must have been the most uncomfortable staff meeting in ancient history.
I think so.
And here is where it gets really interesting for the rest of the story. Because Ahaz refused the sign, the Lord doesn't just stop, he pivots. He declares that he will give a sign anyway, but it's not for Ahaz's immediate needs. It will be the ultimate long-term sign. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you this sign. The virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall name him Emmanuel.
Precisely. The refusal of the small, immediate sign triggers the declaration of the colossal, distant one. The promise of God with us, Emmanuel, is given not because the king was faithful, but you could almost say despite his unwillingness to trust. This establishes a key theme. God's commitment to salvation, it kind of supersedes human cooperation, especially the cooperation of the powerful.
So after Ahaz slammed the door on certainty, the focus shifts entirely. If the existing king isn't ready, who is?
Yeah, who's next?
And the source material then points us toward the spiritual preconditions required for this grand promise to be fulfilled.
This is where we bring in the Psalms, particularly Psalm 24, which serves as a kind of spiritual litmus test. The text shifts from the monarchy's political corruption to the people's spiritual readiness. It asks the critical question for the future. Who can ascend the mountain of the Lord? Or who may stand in his holy place?
And the qualification is absolute.
It is. He whose hands are sinless, whose heart is clean, who desires not what is vain. This is the standard. This is what's required for the King of Glory's entry.
And if you connect that back to Ahaz,
It's the complete opposite. He was busy wearying men and God. Ahaz represented the opposite of clean hands and a pure heart. The new covenant, the fulfillment, it requires a totally different kind of person, one marked by humility and integrity.
that distinction is so crucial. The promise is rooted in the line of David, but the fulfillment needs someone who meets that high spiritual standard, a standard the current king failed entirely.
Yes.
And that is perfectly captured in that beautiful Advent prayer that was included in the sources. O Key of David, opening the gates of God's eternal kingdom, come and free the prisoners of darkness.
It confirms the lineage, but it also underscores that the purpose is liberation, not political power.
Okay, so now we fast forward. We sweep across the centuries from the courts of Judah to this quiet, dusty town of Nazareth in Galilee, as described in the Gospel of Luke. We are moving from the powerful head of the house of David to a young woman, a virgin named Mary.
And Luke sets the stage with surgical precision, just to make sure we understand the historical continuity. The angel Gabriel is sent to Mary, who's betrothed to Joseph, and Luke explicitly notes Joseph is of the house of David. The lineage is confirmed.
Right, so it links this humble moment directly back to that monumental sign declared after Ahaz's stubborn refusal.
It does.
Gabriel's greeting is famous, "Hail, full of grace, the Lord is with you." But here's where Mary's narrative just diverges so sharply from the king's. She is not simply happy or, accepting.
She's processing the shock. The source tells us she was greatly troubled at what was said and pondered what sort of greeting this might be.
That is key.
It is. She isn't just listening passively. She's troubled. She's actively analyzing the words, trying to decipher the meaning and the implications. It's an intellectual and emotional response that shows profound depth.
All before the promise is even revealed.
Exactly.
Then comes the revelation, and the promise is just immense. She's told she has found favor with God. Her son will be named Jesus. He will be great, called Son of the Most High, and most importantly, the historical link is secured. He will receive the throne of David, his father, and his kingdom will have no end.
It's the fulfillment of the sign.
It is the fulfillment of the sign declared to Ahaz centuries earlier, but it's wrapped in a layer of absolute impossibility. And Mary's reaction to this world-changing promise, it's not panic or denial, but a pointed, practical question.
Oh, logistical question, really?
Yes, she asks clearly and rationally, how can this be since I have no relations with a man? I mean, if you look at it purely functionally, this is the voice of someone trying to bridge a gap between a divine promise and her biological reality.
This is where the spiritual reflections you sent over become so invaluable. They make the critical distinction that Mary's question is not the same as Ahaz's refusal. Ahaz showed distrust. He rejected the very possibility of the sign. He refused the help. Mary, on the other hand, accepts the possibility of the promise, but seeks clarity on the mechanism, the how.
She's humble enough to admit she doesn't understand the path forward.
But receptive enough to listen for the answer. She gets the magnitude of it, but she needs the roadmap. And that seeking of clarity instead of just a blanket refusal is what allows the divine to enter her story.
And Gabriel provides an answer that serves as both a technical explanation and a second, more immediate sign, a new certainty to help her navigate the future uncertainty.
Yes.
He tells her the method. The Holy Spirit will come upon her. The power of the Most High will overshadow her. He confirms the result. The child will be called Holy, the Son of God. And then he provides the tangible, real-world proof. Her relative, Elizabeth, who everyone called barren, is already in her 6th month.
A sign that's happening right now.
Yeah.
And that secondary sign is brilliant. It grounds the impossible in a present reality. It's a physical, undeniable proof that God is already moving the boundaries of possibility within her own family. And it all culminates in that definitive assurance that just resets her reality. For nothing will be impossible for God.
Wow.
That statement is the ultimate counterpoint to Ahaz's weariness and doubt. It transforms the absolute certainty of Mary's current reality, a biological impossibility, into the absolute certainty of divine power.
Which naturally leads us to the climax, right?
Yeah.
Mary's final response.
The moment of pure, humble surrender that defines the whole narrative.
Yes. She answers, "Behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. May it be done to me according to your word."
That single sentence, It signifies a profound act of faith that just embraces the impossible future. She is placing her entire life, her reputation, everything, into the hands of a promise she only minimally understands the mechanism of.
But she fully trusts the power behind it. That consent is the spiritual mirror image of Ahaz's refusal, isn't it? The powerful king, fearing loss of control, rejected a sign of certainty designed to help him.
And the humble young woman, who had nothing to lose but her ordinary life, embraced an impossible uncertainty just by saying yes.
The reflection material really emphasizes why this arc is so potent for us today. It notes that Mary's acceptance shows that faith requires a willingness to surrender, even when the path ahead is completely uncertain and terrifying.
It would be terrifying, yeah.
She embodies the humility and courage the Psalms required, the clean heart, the sinless hands that the king lacked.
And that context is so crucial. Ahaz was the king, the representative of the powerful, yet he was too timid or maybe too prideful to accept divine help. Mary was a handmaid, one of the least powerful figures in society, yet she had the profound courage to accept the ultimate risk for the sake of the ultimate promise.
Her journey required that combination of humility to ask how,
and the courage to surrender fully to the answer she was given.
So we've moved across centuries, tracking how this divine promise moved forward. It passed over the refusal of the powerful and landed squarely in the courageous consent of the humble. The source material really emphasizes that divine work moves through hearts that are willing to trust and surrender to an uncertain path.
I think the value of this knowledge lies in recognizing that our own spiritual and emotional path forward often requires us to shift away from Ahaz's weary reluctance, that impulse to refuse a challenging path, and more toward Mary's courageous consent.
Yeah, as you reflect on these powerful texts and this dramatic contrast between refusal and surrender, consider this final provocative thought drawn directly from the source material. What is one area of your life, big or small, where you can say yes more fully today? Think about where your own path forward requires that brave, humble consent rather than asking for the easy sign.